Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Fantasy Birds. Today, we're going to be going over 3 late-round targets to draft in your fantasy football 2022 drafts upcoming this season. We're talking 3 late targets that we love taking that could win your fantasy leagues this upcoming year. But let's not waste your time. Let's hop right into our 3 late-round draft targets. The first guy I want to talk about today is Joshua Palmer, the wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. Having an excellent training camp and preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys, Palmer is establishing himself as the number 3 wide receiver in LA. All reports coming out of Los Angeles showing that he's going to be the front runner for that wide receiver 3 position, which is important, especially in a dynamic offense that they have with Justin Herbert. We've seen number 3 wide receivers be able to be productive in fantasy. Just last season with Tom Brady, as Antonio Brown was putting up nearly 17 points per game when healthy on the field and not taking his shirt off. So we've seen number 3 wide receivers in elite offenses provide fantasy value, especially where you're getting Palmer in drafts. I mean, he's going in the 200 picks. You're getting him at the end of your draft, free cheese, and Palmer has an incredible ceiling for where he's going. We've already seen the production from Palmer last season when given the opportunity. Last year, in 3 games that he was giving 60% snap share for this Chargers offense, he delivered with 7+ targets in these games, also receiving a touchdown in the 3 games that he was getting a 60% snap share. So we've seen when given the opportunity, Palmer can deliver solid fantasy value. And I think it's important to consider Mike Williams and Keenan Allen's deteriorating health over the seasons. We've seen Mike Williams deal with nagging injuries each and every season. Thankfully, last season was the most healthy Williams has been in his career. But other than last year, he's been dealing with these shoulder injuries, keeping him limited in games. And Keenan Allen, a 30-year-old wide receiver that we've seen depleting efficiency each and every year. Yes, he's still putting up numbers, and we'd love taking Keenan Allen in this Herbert offense. If I can get Joshua Palmer for basically free at the end of our drafts as the clear number 3 wide receiver that we've seen produce in the past, there's no reason not to take a stab at Palmer here where he's going in your drafts. Chargers used some pretty significant draft capital to acquire him last year, going as the 77th overall pick in the draft, early 3rd round. So the Chargers obviously see something in Palmer. Didn't do much in the rookie year until the last 6 weeks of the year when given that opportunity like we talked about. So in a season where he could see an increased role in this offense in Justin Herbert, that ascending quarterback that we love targeting the weapons on the outside. You can get a top 5 offense this year, Justin Herbert, maybe even an MVP type season, which people believe he is capable of in Los Angeles with the team that he has surrounding him. Palmer will deliver very, very fair fantasy value where you're grabbing him. Could be a flex option for most of the season, given Herbert's volume in the passing game that he should see. So using a 16th, 17th round pick on a guy like Joshua Palmer, who has a clear path to fantasy relevance as the number 3 wide receiver in a Justin Herbert offense, I'm taking this every single time I can, and I'm expecting his value to continue to rise as we get closer to drafts, given how he has performed in the preseason thus far. Huge game against the Cowboys. But if we can grab him anywhere in the 200s after the 16th round, I'm taking Joshua Palmer every single time. Next guy I want to talk about is going to be Kenneth Gainwell, the running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. Currently going off the board is the 50th running back in fantasy drafts, being selected around pick 143. But this is way too low for Kenneth Gainwell for a number of reasons. One, we know this Philadelphia offense is going to be led by the rushing attack with Jalen Hurts and that dominant offensive line. They're looking at another top 5 offensive line this upcoming season. And we know in Philadelphia, they loved going with the running back by committee approach. Last season, Miles Sanders, the starting running back, if you want to say, didn't even score a touchdown the entire year. So they're filtering these backs by who's got the hot hand. And Kenneth Gainwell, as a rookie last season, actually was one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. Gainwell ended the season in 7th in fantasy points per opportunity, so he's showing that efficiency when given that role in this Eagles backfield. And he was actually very, very dominant in the receiving game for the Eagles. He ended with 11% target share in this backfield, which is very impressive numbers for a rookie running back. 6th in yards per route run last season, and also top 12 at the running back position in yards per reception. So we're seeing a very, very efficient running back in the receiving game, which is going to be very favorable to a guy like Jalen Hurts, who isn't a very deep ball accurate quarterback. He's going to be relying on these short intermediate throws to move the football with his legs in this run game. So Gainwell could play a very big role in this receiving game in an offense that should be dominant with the rushing attack, that doesn't love using workhorse running backs. Paying this extremely low price on Gainwell in your drafts as the 50th overall running back who has potential to be the 1A to 1B and the most dominant rushing team in the NFL. I love grabbing Gainwell when I can pair as an elite handcuff and a guy who has certain flex appeal on a week-to-week basis, given the role we know he's going to play in his second year in the NFL, where he had a very, very respectable rookie campaign for this Eagles team. So at pick 143, the 14th, 15th round in your drafts, using a pick on Gainwell, very, very low risk and super high reward, as he could become that leading rusher in this backfield alongside Jalen Hurts. So Gainwell, definitely a guy we want to be keeping our eye on as the draft gets later and later this upcoming season. The last guy on our list is actually the most expensive guy out of these three players. It's going to be Darrell Henderson, the running back for the Los Angeles Rams. Going around as the 42nd running back off board, right around pick 116 in your fantasy drafts. I love getting Darrell Henderson at a huge discount compared to last season, where he was that workhorse running back. Now, we know, we're not naive. We do not believe Henderson is going to dominate this backfield in the rushing game. That role should belong to Cam Akers as a very talented running back coming out of Florida State, who the team relied on heavily in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. Not very efficient, but we know defensive line and defenses that they were going up against in the playoffs were very, very stout. So Cam Akers still the clear number one in this offense, but we can't be for sure that Sean McVay and the coaching staff are going to rely on one running back that just came off an Achilles tear. Cam Akers definitely does have league-winning upside in the 4th round, but Darrell Henderson's ceiling, where you're getting him in drafts in the 11th, 12th round, definitely up there with Cam Akers. Like we said, we saw it last year when given the role, a top 10 running back through 12 weeks in this Rams dominant offense led by Matt Stafford. Now, let's just say Cam Akers is to struggle in the beginning of the season like he did in the playoffs. There's a very fair argument to go out and say that Darrell Henderson is going to split this backfield 50-50 if Akers isn't able to run like he was prior to his Achilles tear. If I can get a guy in the 12th round that has upside to become a 50-50 split in a top 5 offense in the NFL, especially where you're grabbing him in the 12th round, there's no reason not to jump all over this pick. In this range, you got guys like Alexander Mattison going, who won't even have a role in their offense unless Dalvin Cook is to go down with injury. So Henderson's going to have a clear role. Akers will not dominate 80-90% of the touches in this backfield coming off that Achilles tear. It's just not going to happen. So a guy who should see 30-40% of the touches, who has upside to get into that 50-60% range if the starter is not able to get back to his healthy role like we saw in the past. Darrell Henderson, super cheap option in the late rounds. It gives you that high upside play that isn't just restricted to that handcuff role like some other running backs in the range that he's going at. So as the 42nd running back off the board that has the ability to climb into that top 12 like we saw last season, I love taking Darrell Henderson at the range that he's going, even if he's not going to be the number one running back on his team in the first 4 weeks of the season, because that should belong to Cam Akers. We're not going to be naive and assume that Henderson's going to have that same role, but there's clear upside with this pick later in the draft. A couple other guys I want to mention. Isaiah Spiller didn't make the list, but he's a guy we love targeting. We believe Austin Eckler's rushing touchdown is going to regress significantly this upcoming season. Last season, nearly 50% of his career total touchdowns came. Also, the first year that Eckler was able to dominate a 50% carry snap percentage on a per-game basis in his Los Angeles offense. So we expect Spiller to spill Austin Eckler pretty frequently this upcoming year. Eckler should still dominate the receiving game, but Spiller's going to get a lot of work on the ground in between the 20s. And if he's able to poach that goal line load from Eckler, which we could see, which is a very foreseeable act as Eckler's a smaller running back, more shifty than power. So Spiller profiles to be more of that goal line back. If he's able to get that workload with the rushing attack, Spiller going in the 11th to 12th round, a great handcuff pick with flex upside like we talked about some other of these guys in this video. But that's going to wrap it up. We talked about 3 guys that we love drafting at where they're going in fantasy football drafts this upcoming season. And we added an honorable mention with Isaiah Spiller. But we thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.